celebrities.
Good evening and welcome to Spring Global on Western Spring Television. Now the headlines. A twin bomb explosion rocked the All Progressives Congress rally in Port Harcourt. The United Kingdom has announced plans to send 600 Brimstone missiles to Ukraine. Jacinda Ardern has announced she will quit as New Zealand Prime Minister ahead of this year's election. My name is Okoyemuni. No fewer than 3 persons were injured today when a twin explosion rocked a rally of the All Progressives Congress at the Rumowoji Playground in Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital. It was gathered that 2 of those injured are women, all of whom were rushed to the hospital for medical attention. Publicity Secretary of the APC, Darlington Nwaju, confirmed the incident and described it as unfortunate. In Osun State, ahead of next month's general elections, elder statesman and chieftain of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Chief Ebenezer Babatope, says to have free, fair and credible process, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, must discharge its duties without fear or favor. Chief Babatope, who spoke exclusively to Western Spring Television News, noted that building on the Ekiti and Osun governorship elections, INEC must prove itself trustworthy and avoid being used by powers that be to subvert the will of the people. According to the elder statesman, while Nigerians must embrace peace and shun divisive politics, the government must also show the political will to stamp out insecurity and other issues that may threaten the electoral process. He also charged the politicians to desist from playing politics of bitterness and avoid actions or comments that may unnecessarily eat up the polity.
Will give us a credible election. Credible in the sense that election that will be accepted as being free and fair, election that will be accepted as being just, an election that will enable the people of Nigeria to elect those who should govern them. The INEC has not got a good record, but I can say that from what I've been happening of recent, that they are creating their names in history, because I never knew that the PDP would be allowed to win Osun State. I thought the INEC would play the whole game of awarding Osun to political parties of their choice, but they did well, and they did the same thing. And also, we can also talk in terms of other states where they have performed very well. I do hope that the INEC will repeat the same performance in these 2023 elections, so that Nigeria can really continue with an atmosphere of peace, a tradition of justice, and a tradition that will make sure that the people of the people alone are the prime force behind history.
As Nigerians prepare for the 2023 elections, residents of Osun State have expressed deep concern on the damage being done to political billboards in the state. Olayinka Ali was on the streets of Osogbo and fell in this report. The report will be brought to you in our subsequent bulletin. Outside Nigeria, Senegalese opposition leader Ousmane Sonko will face trial on charges of rape and making death threats to a beauty salon employee in 2021. An investigating judge referred the matter to Senegal's criminal chamber for trial in a letter dated January 17 and seen by newsmen yesterday. Sonko's lawyer did not immediately respond to a request for comment, but the 48-year-old politician has previously denied all the charges. A trial could jeopardize his intention to compete in the 2024 presidential election. Sonko, who came third in the 2019 election, has announced he will run in the next election. Sonko is accused of sexually assaulting a woman who worked in a massage parlor and later threatening her. To the Russian-Ukraine war, British Defense Secretary Ben Wallace says the UK plans to send 600 Brimstone missiles to Ukraine to support the country in its fight against Russia. Mr. Wallace was meeting with other defense ministers at the Tapa Army base in Estonia. He outlined a previously announced package of military support for Ukraine, including sending Challenger tanks, and added detail on the types of missiles Britain would supply. Mr. Wallace also said Western unity against Russian President Vladimir Putin's invasion remained strong and that allies were in it for the long haul. He added that 2023 is about showing Mr. Putin that the international community is determined more than ever to stand by Ukraine.
When President Putin started the invasion on the 24th of February, he made a number of assumptions. The first one being that Ukrainians would not fight. The second one being that his superior military, as he thought about it, would quickly crush any resistance, and by now, in fact within 3 weeks, he would be pretty much in control of Ukraine. And finally, he banked on the fact that he thought the international community was fickle, that it wouldn't stick together, that we wouldn't see it through, and indeed by now we'd have all got bored and been bullied by high energy prices. Well, none of those have turned out to be true. 2023 is about demonstrating to Putin that that last point, the point that the international community isn't fractured, that the international community is more than ever determined to stand by Ukraine to see it through. You know, we are here today and we'll be here tomorrow in Ramstein in the United States, hosted a Ramstein conference with many more of our both NATO partners but also other non-NATO nations to make it very clear to President Putin that we will continue to donate, continue to train and continue to stand by Ukraine.
United States Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has said Berlin remains one of Washington's most important allies at his first meeting with his new German counterpart. Mr. Austin, in his talk with the new German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius, thanked the German government for all it has done to strengthen Ukraine's self-defense. The pair's meeting comes as pressure mounts on Berlin to supply Ukraine with Battle tanks. Kiev's Western allies are preparing to hold discussions tomorrow on military aid for Ukraine at a U.S. airbase in Germany. Russia has warned that any Ukrainian attacks on the Russian-annexed Crimea would be extremely dangerous. This comes after the New York Times reported that U.S. officials were warming to the idea of helping Kiev attack the Black Sea Peninsula. However, the Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said the mere discussion of allowing Ukraine to be supplied with arms that would allow it to attack Russian territory is extremely dangerous. He added that it will mean taking the conflict to a new level, which would not bode well for global and pan-European security. Crimea, which is internationally recognized as part of Ukraine, was seized by Moscow in 2014. The peninsula is a historical base of Russia's Black Sea Fleet and a popular summer holiday destination. Dmitry Medvedev, an outspoken former Russian president and a close ally to President Vladimir Putin, has warned NATO that Moscow's defeat in Ukraine could trigger a nuclear war. Medvedev, who serves as deputy chairman of Russia's Powerful Security Council, made this known in a post on Telegram, stating that the defeat of a nuclear power in a conventional war may trigger a nuclear war. Medvedev, who served as president from 2008 to 2012, said nuclear powers have never lost major conflicts on which their fate depends. He also said the military alliance and other Western defense leaders due to meet at Ramstein Air Base in Germany on Friday to discuss support for Ukraine should consider the risks of their policy. The Kremlin was quick to endorse Medvedev's remarks, stating that they were in full accordance with Moscow's principles. Medvedev, who once presented himself as a reformer who was ready to work with the United States to liberalize Russia, has recast himself as the most publicly hawkish member of Putin's circle since the invasion last year. Elsewhere, French President Emmanuel Macron's reform program faces a make-or-break moment as unions stage a day of mass strikes and protests today against its plans to push back the age of retirement. A new bill due to go through Parliament will raise the official age at which people can stop work from 62 to 64. Intercity and commuter train services are expected to be badly disrupted, while many schools and other public services will be shut. Large demonstrations drawing tens of thousands are expected in Paris and other cities where police will be out in force in case of violence from ultra-left black bloc infiltrators. watching Spring Global on Western Spring Television. We'll be right back after this break.
According to the words of Michael Forbes, one who never asks questions either knows everything and nothing. Watch me as I ask the questions you think no one wants to answer. Even questions it appears no one has got the guts to ask. My name is Femi Adefula and I've got the gut. Let's ask the pertinent questions and watch as we get answers.
Turn it up! It's the Wild Wild West, and Western Spring Television is pulling out all the stops to make sure that you don't miss out on every of the fun and happenings around you. Yup, we've got you covered because your girls got all the juiciest tidbits and entertainment news from around the world. Cross over to the chocolate side of entertainment. Join me, Chocolate Cassie, on Eccentric as we take you into every bit of the juiciest news, fashion, music, movie updates, and other trending conversations. Together on the show, we'll get personal with your favorite celebrities via phone call, Zoom, or even live here in the studio. Eccentric will be showing on your TV screen on Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on Star Times.
Welcome back on Spring Global on Western Spring Television. Jacinda Ardern has announced she will quit as New Zealand Prime Minister ahead of this year's election, saying she no longer has enough in the tank to lead. Ms. Ardern choked up as she detailed how 6 challenging years in the job had taken a toll. Labour Party lawmakers will vote to find a replacement on Sunday. The shock announcement comes as polling indicates the party faces a difficult path to re-election on the 14th of October. Ms. Ardern, who stepped down by the 7th of February, became the youngest female head of government in the world when she was elected Prime Minister in 2017, aged 37, and a year later she became the second elected world leader to ever give birth while in office after Pakistan's Benazir Bhutto in 1990.
For my part, I want to finish with a simple thank you to New Zealanders for giving me this opportunity to serve and to take on what has and will always be the greatest role of my life. I hope in return, I leave behind a belief that you can be kind but strong, empathetic but decisive, optimistic but focused, that you can be your own kind of leader, one that knows.
South Korea and Iran have summoned each other's ambassadors in a diplomatic dispute triggered by South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, describing Tehran as the enemy of the United Arab Emirates while visiting South Korean special forces stationed in Abu Dhabi on Monday. Yoon described the UAE as a brother nation of South Korea tied by growing economic and military cooperation. Yoon then compared the threat UAE supposedly faces from Iran to the threat South Korea faces from nuclear-armed North Korea. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister on Legal Affairs, Reza Najafi, summoned the South Korean ambassador yesterday to protest against Yoon's remarks. Najafi also accused Seoul of pursuing an unfriendly approach towards Iran and noted the issue of Iranian funds frozen in South Korean banks. However, South Korea's first Vice Foreign Minister, Cho Won-dong, called on Iranian Ambassador Saeed Badamchi Shabazz-Terari to explain Seoul's stance once again. It stated that the reported comments of the president were meant to encourage troops serving their duties in the UAE and had nothing to do with Iran's foreign relations, including South Korea-Iran relations. In the Middle East, the second largest, longest-serving Palestinian prisoner, Maya Younis, has been released after serving 4 decades in Israeli prisons. Maya, aged 65, was released from a shell prison near Be'er-Sheva in southern Israel about 7 a.m. local time today. He was arrested in 1983 and convicted alongside his cousin, Karim Younis, in Israeli courts of killing an Israeli soldier in Syria's Israeli-occupied Golan Heights in 1980. Karim, released 2 weeks ago, was the longest-serving Palestinian prisoner, having been arrested earlier than Maya. The cousins are from the Palestinian village of Ara in Israel, where large crowds of relatives and friends greeted Maya upon his arrival in the village following his release. While the Israeli army has shot dead 2 Palestinian men during the raid in Jenin, bringing the number of Palestinians killed by Israeli forces in the occupied West Bank in January to 17. According to local journalist Jawad Farid Bawaquin, a 57-year-old father of 6 and teacher at a local school was killed this morning in the Jenin refugee camp, while Adam Jabarim, a 28-year-old fighter with the Jenin Brigade's armed resistance group. The Palestinian Ministry of Health confirmed the names and ages of the deceased men at 7 a.m. The ministry further disclosed that at least 4 other Palestinians were injured by live ammunition. At least 15 men have been killed and 3 others injured in the fire that broke out at a military unit in Azad village in Armenia's eastern province of Gegarznik. The Armenian Ministry of Defense confirmed this in a statement, stating that 15 servicemen were killed as a result of the fire that broke out in the barracks of an engineer and sniper company of a military unit. The ministry disclosed that the blaze broke out at 1:30 a.m. local time this morning under circumstances that have yet to be ascertained. The ministry further revealed that the fire incident left 3 wounded men in serious condition. Azad lies near the border with Azerbaijan, a country that was at war with Armenia in 2020 over the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region, which is internationally recognized as Azerbaijani, but is populated and controlled by ethnic Armenian majority. In business, Ethiopia's finance ministry says speculation that the birr currency would be devalued is completely unfounded. This is as the country seeks an International Monetary Fund loan after agreeing to a ceasefire in its 2-year civil war. According to Refinitiv Econ data, the birr currently trades at 53.442 to the United States dollar, but it is reportedly worth 96 to 97 on a black market. The state finance minister, Ayob Tekali, stated on Twitter that the widespread stories about the devaluation is nothing but rumor and completely unfounded. He stated that a sensible macro reform is always the agenda of the government, but there should not be any concern about mere devaluation. To some sports stories, the Iraqi Interior Ministry has confirmed 4 deaths and about 80 injuries after a stampede at Basra International Stadium, also known as Palm Trunk Stadium. According to the Iraqi Football Federation, about 90% of the tickets were already sold ahead of the kickoff of the Gulf Cup final. Abdul Wahid said that made many Iraq football fans mad, especially those who had come from other provinces. It stated that fans poured in from across the Gulf to attend the final match between Iraq and Oman, putting Basra's strained infrastructure under further pressure. Authorities had earlier said Iraqi was lucky to host such a special event, but the city is not as prepared as it should be. In tennis, American men's tennis player of Nigerian descent Michael Moore stunned world number 13 and 12th seed Alexander Zverev of Germany to progress into the 3rd round of the 2023 Australian Open today. The The 25-year-old only entered this year's Australian Open as a lucky loser after the withdrawal of David Goffin. It is just the first time in Moore's career that he has made it to the third round of any major. Zverev got a good start to the match and took the first set 7-6, but Moore then made a fantastic comeback and won the next 3 sets 6-4, 6-3, 6-2. Moore will face fellow American Jeffrey Wolf in the third round on Saturday, born in Saudi Arabia, where he lived until the age of 13. Moore has both Irish and Nigerian ancestry. His father, Tony Moore, was also a professional tennis player who represented Nigeria and reached a career high ranking of 105.
Momentous. 6-7, 6-4, 6-3, 6-2.
In the meantime, Novak Djokovic battled through injury to reach the Australian Open third round on another day when more of his expected title rivals were knocked out. The 35-year-old Serb, going for a record-extending 10th men's triumph in Melbourne, won 6-1, 6-7, 6-2, 6-0 against French qualifier Enzo Cacord. Djokovic had a medical timeout, seemingly hampered by an existing hamstring injury, but came through. A day after Rafael Nadal exited, second seed Casper Ruud was also beaten. The Norwegian, who reached 2 Grand Slam finals last year, lost 6-3, 7-5, 6-7, 6-2 to American Jenson Brooksby.
Game, set, and match. Djokovic.
That's the way to punctuate the victory.
3 sets to 1. 6-1, 6-7, 6-2, 6-1.
Djokovic in 4 sets. He had to work very hard against Enzo Quacco. 3 hours and 4 minutes.
Before we end the Spring Global, here's a recap of our top stories. No fewer than 3 persons were injured today when a twin explosion rocked a rally of the All Progressives Congress at the Rumuwoji Playground in Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital. British Defence Ministry Secretary Ben Wallace says the UK plans to send 600 Brimstone missiles to Ukraine to support the country in its fight against Russia. Jacinda Ardern has announced she will quit as New Zealand Prime Minister ahead of this year's election, saying she no longer has enough in the tank to lead. You can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. I am Okoye Muni. Thanks for watching.